If you're an anime lover like myself, who also happens to have a Netflix account, then you were probably targeted a couple weeks ago with previews for a new anime called Beastars. And if you love anthropomorphic characters like me, then you probably watched it right away, and then watched it again, and then watched it while playing Minecraft again, and then probably watched it again after that. Hello comic book junkies, it's the Frog Queen here, and today we're talking about Beastars. It's recently made its way as an anime on Netflix, but beyond the catchy theme song, which is so good by the way, and the story of forbidden love, there's a huge collection of themes actually about things like nurture versus nature, judging appearances, stereotypes, prejudice, and a whole lot more. And that's the thing with Beastars. You want more. I want more immediately because I watched it so many times. I had to look online, of course, and I assumed that there would be a manga, and I was correct. There is a manga. You can get more. So we're so lucky. The Netflix anime series is of course based on an award-winning manga series by somebody named Paru Itagaki, and she won the 2018 Manga Taisho Award, a Tezuka Osamu Cultural Prize, a Kodansha Manga Award, and the Japan Media Arts Festival Award. She's the progeny of the famous manga creator Keisuke Itagaki. He's creator of the long-cherished manga Baki, which is also an anime that you can watch on Netflix. Anyway, Paru is only 26, and she had begun writing Beastars as a teenager. That's pretty insane. This is really interesting because of the maturity and the themes and situations in the book. But if you haven't watched the series or read the books, then you have no idea what I'm talking about. So let's back up and I'll tell you what Beastars is. Straight from the Wikipedia synopsis. The story takes place in a world of modern, civilized, anthropomorphic animals with a cultural divide between carnivores and herbivores. And the series takes its name from the in-universe rank of Beastar, and an individual of great talent, service, and notoriety. Legoshi is a large gray wolf. He's timid and quiet. He's a student of Cherryton Academy, where he lives in a dorm with several other carnivorous students, including his outgoing Labrador friend Jack. And as a member of the school's drama club, Legoshi works as a stagehand and supports the actors of the club headed by the star pupil Louis, who is this red deer. Out of nowhere, Tem, the alpaca, is brutally murdered and devoured in the night, setting off a wave of unease and distrust between the herbivore and carnivore students. At the same time, Legoshi has a fateful encounter with Haru, a small dwarf rabbit, and begins developing complex feelings for her. All of this is deeply appealing to me, of course. I had to dive right into the manga series, and I spent the last 2 days prior to filming this video, recording this video, reading the first 4 volumes. So I still have 3 more to read, of course, and there are 7 volumes available in North America to date from Viz Media. So having gotten halfway through the series and just being completely obsessed with this series, I had to stop and make a video right away. Why do I love this series so much? Why am I so obsessed with it? I am completely charmed by Legoshi, who actually was a character that creator Paru admits to having created half of her life ago. Like, she spent half of her life creating Legoshi. She's only 26. She started creating him when she was a teenager. And she adopted his name from actor Bela Lugosi, who is the actor who played Dracula in 1931, the 1931 film. Haru felt that his name was very elegant, and so she gave her most beloved character, this wolf character she's been kind of creating since she was basically a child. She gave him kind of like a Japanese version of his name. So when you read how Haru feels about Legoshi, because she does talk about it in the back of a couple of the manga volumes and some other places online you can read about her thoughts too. When she talks about how she feels about Legoshi, you can tell that she deeply loves this character, especially with all the time that's gone into creating him. And you can tell so much thought has just gone into his creation, from the detail she talks about creating his hands and how she wanted his hands to look, his hunched posture, his facial expressions, which are often embarrassed and awkward, or downright to the point serious, which is interesting too. Because he is kind of a contradiction a little bit in a way. He really does feel like one of those kids you knew as a teenager, though, who shot up a foot higher than everyone else and is just awkward because he reached physical maturity before a bunch of the other kids did. But not only that, Legoshi is mentally more mature than his peers. He also completely buys into the societal ideals that carnivores and herbivores can live in harmony. And that's what he's striving for. But he also accepts and realizes that the violence and the hunting is somehow ingrained in his DNA. So he's always come to terms with that and realizing that, that is part of him. But he actively rebels against it and all of his urges. So of course, meeting the dwarf rabbit Haru has him completely confused because he likes her intellectually, even though his body's basically telling him to eat her. And so he tortures himself being around her and struggling with his feelings of passion and intimacy, and also the direct opposite, whereas devouring her as food. So Legoshi needs to figure out if he wants to be with Haru or if he wants to eat her, and if those two feelings are one and the same. And I think of course you can see parallels between men having sexually aggressive feelings towards specific women or women in general, and then wrestling with how that's not okay. And I mean, we can get into a lot of that stuff. I don't really want to get into all that psychology stuff, but this book is kind of addressing that in this really interesting way. And that's one of the best things about anthropomorphic stories, is it lets you address things that are very, very deeply human problems, and walk them out in this different way. It's easier for us to read about them, to address them, to talk about them when it's these animals. And this whole story does kind of have that men trying to be good people, fighting against this idea that masculinity is also brutal and brutality, and women are these dainty little bunny rabbits, which also gets addressed when we talk about Haru, which I'm going to talk about in another video, because I feel like it's just, there's too much to unpack for one video. So anyways, let's continue. Although Legoshi struggles to tell Haru how he truly feels, Legoshi himself is not a coward. He actively stands up for what he believes in, even though it is directly the opposite of what his peers believe, his peers being the other carnivores that he goes to school with. He also accepts the way others act around him. So he's used to small animals fearing him, so the herbivore students, they kind of cower around him, and he doesn't take offense to their reactions. He's used to it. He accepts it. He accepts that his presence is threatening. And instead, he quietly offers support and even moves slower and more gently around these smaller animals, these ones that are kind of fearful about him, because he does have the power to just eat them up in one little bite. But Legoshi isn't the only animal in the story to alter his natural behavior in order to conform to the societal ideal of harmony between carnivores and herbivores. The mayor of the city, the characters live in this city. There's this lion. Spit it out, Amy. So the lion mayor actually had his teeth filed down so that they are blunted instead of sharp and threatening, and to get rid of his fangs, so that when he smiles to all the animals, he appears friendlier and less threatening, and herbivores will like him. And of course, he's a lion, so he's a natural leader, right? Kind of like, think of like other stories like The Jungle Book and The Lion King, of course. So it's interesting because this mayor, you know, he is very diplomatic. He does have respect. He commands respect. He's changing the image of the violent lion. But all is not what it appears to be, of course. So as the story continues, the students become aware that there is this thing called the black market, and that's where the carnivores get to eat herbivores. And I mean, it's all illegal, and it operates under this veil of secrecy, but it's very well known at the same time. So basically, the mayor and the government is letting it exist. Now, there are ways, and it's not all of the herbivores there are murder victims. Some of them died of natural causes, and then the carnivores go and eat them, which is suspect too. But there are even some poverty-ridden herbivores at the black market that are willing to sell pieces of themselves to carnivores for money, you know? So there's some very interesting scenes around that are very gruesome. So, yeah. I can't really stop reading this series. I'm going to talk about it more. I want to do another video on it. Of course, I half scripted this video, half of it's ad-libbed. There's so much I want to talk about that I feel is going to be hard to fit into one video. And I do feel like I want to show more of the artwork and things like that, but it shall have to wait. We won't see season 2 of the anime until sometime in 2021. After it's aired in Japan. I don't think we'll get it later than that, probably several months later. Luckily, though, we have volume 8 due to be released in North America in July. And the manga, I believe, is 18 volumes deep in Japan. And those are slowly being released by Viz here in North America. So there's lots to consume, and I believe it's still ongoing. I have to double check on that. We'll get back to you on that, but I believe I read that it was still ongoing, so it's going to continue, at least for now. But 18 volumes, that's really exciting. I just finished Dorohedoro, and that's going to have its own separate video. And I needed a new anime, or a new manga series, because Dorohedoro was my only ongoing real one, besides Berserk and, you know, the ones that have been going on for years and years and years. And Dorohedoro was wrapped up. So here we are with Beastars, and it has caught my attention and caught my heart, and I'm totally in love with it. And all the reasons I listed above about Legoshi is why you need to pick up Beastars. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female. I think this book is widely appealing to anyone, of any culture, of any background. There's so much to it that you can identify with. I think there's something there for everybody. But we'll talk more about the inner workings of Beastars in a follow-up video to this, where I'm going to talk a little bit more about Haru, one of the other main characters. Alright, I think that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, read something good. Bye.